John watched his friend Mark eye the sandwich. It was a simple thing. Turkey, lettuce, tomato. But Mark wanted more. He always wanted more.
Just try it with mayo.
Mark pleaded, holding up the jar.
One bite.
John shifted uncomfortably. He knew what lurked in the shadows. He knew the truth about the Mayo Demon. It wasn't just a silly story, it was real. He'd seen it with his own eyes. Mark, on the other hand, was oblivious. He had always been the adventurous one, the one who would try anything once, but this was different. This wasn't just about trying a new condiment. This was about something far more sinister. John remembered the stories his grandmother used to tell him. Stories about the Mayo Demon, a creature that would possess anyone who consumed the cursed condiment. He had always thought they were just tales to scare children, until he saw it for himself.
I'm good.
John mumbled, pushing the sandwich away. He couldn't tell Mark the truth, not yet. He had to find a way to protect his friend without revealing the dark secret that haunted him. He knew that once Mark took a bite, there would be no turning back. The demon would take hold and his friend would be lost forever. He had to find a way to stop it, to break the curse. But how? How could he convince Mark without sounding crazy? He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. The fate of his friend depended on it.
I'm good.
John repeated, more firmly this time. He pushed the sandwich further away, hoping Mark would take the hint. But Mark just looked at him, confused and slightly hurt. He couldn't tell Mark the truth, not yet. But he would find a way. He had to, for both their sakes. Mark loved mayonnaise. He put it on everything, burgers, fries, even pizza. John never understood it.
It's the taste.
Mark would say, his mouth full.
It makes everything better.
John shuddered. He knew it wasn't just a taste. It was a hold the Mayo Demon had on Mark. John had to tell him. He had to warn him before it was too late. John had heard the whispers since he was a child. Stories told around campfires. Tales of a creature, born of shadow and oil. The Mayo Demon. 11 feet tall, they said. Made of pure darkness, with eyes that glowed like hot mustard. It craved mayonnaise. It feasted on the stuff, its touch a promise of death. The night was still, the air thick with an eerie silence that seemed to swallow every sound. The neon lights of the diner flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the pavement. It was a night like any other, or so it seemed. John had seen the demon once. It was a memory that haunted him, a vision that refused to fade. The terror in his eyes was unmistakable, a reflection of the horror that had gripped his soul. He could still feel the cold sweat on his brow, the pounding of his heart as he recalled that fateful night. At a diner, late one night. The place was almost deserted, the only sound the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional clink of cutlery. The dim lighting cast a somber glow, adding to the sense of isolation. It was the perfect setting for a nightmare to unfold. A man sat alone, a burger dripping with mayo in his hands. The air grew cold. He took a bite, the taste of the burger turning to ash in his mouth as the temperature dropped. He looked around, sensing a presence, something dark and malevolent lurking in the shadows. Shadows stretched, twisting into the demon's horrifying form. The darkness seemed to come alive, coiling and writhing as it took shape. The man could only watch in horror as the demon emerged, its form grotesque and terrifying. It was a sight that defied reason, a nightmare made flesh. It towered over the man, its eyes burning with unholy hunger. The man had screamed. The sound was a raw, primal cry, filled with fear and desperation. The demon's eyes glowed with a malevolent light, its gaze piercing through the man's very soul. It was a moment of pure terror, a confrontation with the unimaginable. A short, sharp sound cut off as the demon reached out, its touch a silent, oily death. The man's scream was abruptly silenced, replaced by a chilling stillness. The demon's tendrils wrapped around him, their touch cold and unyielding. It was over in an instant, the man consumed by the darkness, leaving nothing but an empty diner and a lingering sense of dread.
Mark, you have to listen to me, John said, his voice tight.
The mayor... It's not safe, Mark laughed.
What are you talking about? John hesitated.
He knew how crazy it sounded, but he couldn't let his friend become another victim.
There's something you need to know.
John said, his voice barely a whisper.
About the Mayo Demon.
John told Mark everything. About the whispers, the diner, the creature that feasted on mayonnaise and death. Mark listened, his face pale. He looked at the sandwich in his hand, then at the jar of mayo. For a moment, John thought he hadn't gotten through. Then, Mark slowly put the sandwich down. This is the tale of two friends, Mark and John, who faced an unusual and terrifying challenge in their kitchen. It all began one fateful evening when Mark decided he had had enough of the Mayo Demon that had haunted their lives for weeks.
No more mayo, Mark said, his voice shaky. The fear in his eyes was palpable, as if the very mention of the condiment could summon the demon itself. The kitchen, once a place of comfort and creativity, had become a battleground.
He looked at John, his eyes wide with fear and gratitude. John had always been the braver of the two, the one who faced challenges head-on. Mark knew that without John's support, he would never be able to confront the Mayo Demon.
Thank you. John nodded, relief washing over him. He had been preparing for this moment, gathering courage and devising a plan to rid their lives of the Mayo Demon once and for all. The weight of the task ahead was immense, but together, they felt invincible.
He had saved his friend. The bond between them grew stronger as they faced the demon together. In that moment, they realized that their friendship was their greatest weapon against the darkness that threatened to consume them. He had defied the Mayo Demon. The victory was not just over the demon, but over their own fears and insecurities. They stood tall, knowing that they had achieved something remarkable. But as they turned away, John couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The kitchen, now dimly lit, seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next move. The shadows danced on the walls, creating an eerie atmosphere. The Mayo Demon was still out there, waiting, watching. It was a reminder that their battle was not yet over, that vigilance was necessary to keep the darkness at bay. The presence of the demon lingered, a silent threat in the background, and it would be back. The friends knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. They would need to stay strong, united, and ever watchful. The Mayo Demon had been defeated for now, but the fight for freedom was far from over. I'll be waiting for you. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, subscribe, and comment video ideas down below. And finally, follow me on my other channels, Polar Bear Problems and Polar Bear Presents, to see the face behind the prompts. See you next time.